Hi, guys. Welcome back to Under the Sun, the podcast. I just realized that I actually did everyone a favor. I bought a pop filter for my mic because I realized that I've been breathing really hard into the mic. And kind of when I say like words like with the P and everything, you can kind of hear the, I don't know if you guys have noticed it. And low key, if you haven't noticed it, then just like disregard this entire trade. But I notice it because I have to go back and listen to myself speak, which is a form of torture in itself. But I noticed and I was like, oh, I should get a pop filter because I feel like I'm just breathing really heavily into the mic and it's really hard for me to moderate my volume. And so I bought said pop filter for the mic, but I did not pick it up. And it's recording time. And honestly, I do not have it in me to get up and go all the way to go pick it up from where I need to pick it up and then come back and record. So this is my window to record, and so I'm just gonna we're gonna endure it for one more episode and keep it pushing. So again, hello, how are you? How are you doing? How's your past week been? As usual, let's take this moment to take a deep breath and reflect on what's been happening. I don't know about y'all, this weekend has been bordering on what feels like impossible. I'm not going to dive too much into it because I just don't want to get discouraged while talking. It's something that I'm still working through, it's something that I'm still processing. But yes, it's been more of a trying week, more so because I've been dealing with exams and also trying to navigate this new landscape regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion in the US. I'm a part of an org which serves Black students, and we're having to kind of have these conversations and start to think, okay, where does that leave us in a country that has taken away affirmative action and is having a government that is cracking on all sorts of initiatives that are designed to give us equity? How do we move forward? How do we pivot? How do we adapt? How do we make sure that we stay resilient in this time? And that is a really, really important cause and a really important topic that, of course, needs to be deliberated on with a lot of thought and a lot of care and meticulousness, but it also takes a lot out of you, especially mentally. So those are the things that I've been grappling with and trying to put my energy to. And then towards the end of the week, I got some very upsetting news that was quite personal to me, not really to anybody else. It's really just something that is directly related to my life. And it was very it was very hard. I feel like I'm going to be real with you guys. I've been crying this entire weekend. More so because I'm sad, but also because I have been so overwhelmed with the grace of God, and because I've been so lifted up simultaneously by the strength of the women around me. It's Women's History Month. I don't know if I already talked about this, but happy Women's History Month. As someone who is finally feeling like a woman and less of a girl, I have a new appreciation for this time. Yesterday was International Women's Day. Shout out to all my women, for all women and girls, rights, equality, and empowerment. That is the theme. And we deserve nothing less. Women deserve everything. We are so strong. We are so resilient. And this weekend, I was so encouraged by the strength of the women around me, especially during this time of my life where I feel like it's been a little difficult to tap into that strength and to be resilient and to trust in God. I've been so encouraged. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit deeper, but and when I talk about my peaks and my pit, but obviously the pit here is just the news I got, the fact that it is so hard to continue to celebrate diversity in a time where diversity is really so important, and it's important to highlight. Like, you think we're in the 21st century, we should be able to move forward and be able to understand that those differences are what makes us special, and equity is extremely important for us to have a society that continues to progress. The fact that that all is being called into question in some way or form is really disheartening. So that I would say is my pit. My peak, however, was the incredible International Women's Day event that I had the privilege of attending and being a part of in some way, shape, or form, and all the things that I learned. We had a guest speaker come. It was an event hosted by my church to celebrate all of our incredible women and to also talk about what it's like to be a woman and what God has called us to do as women. And we had a wonderful speaker and author, Elizabeth Lang Thompson. I had the privilege of meeting her. I got her like a signed book, and I encourage you to get her book. I was lucky enough to get the title, All the Feels. I haven't read it yet, but if her talk was anything, was like a glimpse into what this book is delving into, which I believe it is, I am so excited to read it, and I will be reporting back about how the book has made me feel and what I've learned with this book, because it was so powerful. Her message about how to, be resilient and navigate Christianity, and how to hear God's voice in the midst of our emotions. I'm certainly a very emotional person. I feel a lot. I feel very deeply, and I can sometimes get really overwhelmed by my emotions. As someone who also believes in God and also realizes that sometimes our emotions aren't reliable, it's still really hard to sometimes, get through all the fuzz and all the noise and really locking on what God is saying. And this weekend was really transformative because, one, I feel like it helped me understand myself a lot more. It helped me draw closer to God, especially in this more difficult time of my life where I feel like I'm grappling with a lot of things that have made my emotions go haywire. So that was my peak, really being able to connect with my fellow sisters and my friends, and reflecting on how amazing they are, and that even in the face of all the things that they've gone through, like they're still able to smile and give back and just be the amazing people that they are. So that was definitely my peak. That entire weekend and this past service too was just such a beautiful reminder and testament about God's love and also the strength of women. And I felt so loved. I felt so empowered. And I also felt a great sense of joy at just the amount of love, within my community, within my church family, within my friend group. I'm just amazing set of women. So that was my take. And I encourage you, like, it's still Women's History Month. Please celebrate the women around you. Like, you don't have to wait for one day to celebrate the women around you. Please take the time to give them love. Please take the time to emphasize to all your fellow ladies, if you're a lady, or just the women in your life, even if you're not a woman, that they are important, and that you recognize the essential role that they play in your life. The Oscars also happened. I really like watching award shows. I'm very I think it's cool these days. This is a sign of maturity, guys. I've actually started watching the actual award shows rather than just watching the red carpet. As a kid, I would watch the red carpet and critique. Like, I would really put on my inner Joan Rivers. I'm pretty sure I have an episode on the Oscars of 2022 where the entire episode is really centered around me rating everyone's outfits. We're not doing that this episode, so before you start to panic or before you feel inclined to click off because you're not into that, we're just gonna kind of talk about, I did watch like half of it. I got a little bored at the end and I was like, okay, I kind of want to watch something else, because watching an award show for movies when you haven't seen the movie or when you haven't heard the song, like watching award shows dedicated to an art that you don't know much about or to a project that you haven't like really interacted with, is so interesting, because I think it does two things. One, it either makes you very, very lost and you're just wondering, why am I watching this? Like, I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand the hype. Or it makes you very intrigued and it educates you on perhaps some projects that you should be tuned into in order to understand what's happening in culture in that time. So certain movies that I haven't watched, but because of their Oscar wins and nominations and just the plethora of accolades that they have received, is Anora. I'm very excited to watch Anora. I still don't know what it is about, but I'm gonna find out. I think they won the actress in the leading role, Mikey Madison, I think won an Oscar. They also won, what else did they win? They won like the directing Oscar. They also won a film editing Oscar. Like, it was a lot of Oscars, y'all. I just kept hearing Anora, and I'm like, okay, best picture, Anora. Like, I, again, still do not know what this movie is about, but I want to watch it because I'm like, if you are winning all these awards, this is like the publicity you need right here. I did see a post that said that I think the director, or don't quote me on this, but like someone attached to the film spent a lot of money publicizing its like bid for an Oscar of some sort. And I was wondering, I don't actually know how Oscars work because the way the headline was written, it's almost like Oscars can be bought, which is crazy to me. And I'm really hoping that's not the case. I haven't honestly done my due diligence and gone into that, but that's something I actually have to look into because I'm like, wait, aren't what's happening, and based on the technicalities of it all and the talent and all that fun stuff, like, is it just based on marketing? So if anybody knows anything about that, like, feel free to comment. I kind of want to know, but I'm going to do my own research and maybe I'll talk about it later on. But another movie that I'm also really inclined to watch, I still cannot believe I haven't watched it because it's been on my list of to watch movies for the longest, is Wicked. I think Wicked won a number of Oscars as well. They won production design, costume design. Yeah, I don't know. They won those. I do not feel like Googling and looking up all the things. I don't have notes at all today. I'm really spitballing here. So yeah, the Oscars happened, fun times. The looks were, some of them were a hit, some of them were a miss. I was kind of expecting more for some people. I wasn't expecting a lot from other people. I don't know if I have a favorite look. I was impressed by Lupita Nyong'o's look. I loved it so much. I was pleasantly surprised, or just like, I was very happy to see Ariana Grande's look because I feel like her looks these past few like in the last few awards, have just been a little like, who's dressing you, babes? What's going on? But I really loved her look. I think it was Schiaparelli. Don't quote me on that. This is just me trying to recall what was happening. But I think for me, Lupita stood out to me. Who else stood out to me? I liked Miley Cyrus's look as well. It was like a black dress, halter. I think it was kind of hard to see the detailing of the dress from but it just might be certain angles, whatever. But she did look quite stunning. I liked the shape of the dress, and all that on her. So I was like, okay, cool. Halle Berry is stunning per usual. So I kind of like that. I did not like Cynthia Erivo's dress. It was very Wicked core. And I was just kind of like, okay. Okay, this is not supposed to be a critique. I promise this is not supposed to be a critique of the Oscars. I will say, I was very emotional when I watched Zoe Saldana's speech. She won an award and she had this really, heartfelt speech. She was crying. She was shouting at her mom and all sorts of people. It made me think of my mom, and that's why I cried. So I don't necessarily think it was her. I don't really think it was the speech itself, but it was just what it reminded me of. I felt like it was so, again, in the face of Women's Day and Women's History Month, and again, all the talk revolving DEI in America at this moment, it was just such a big and what about it moment during the award show. So I really enjoyed that. But that was kind of all I remember. This happened March 2nd. I'm recording this on March 9th, y'all. My memory is not the best. So I don't remember the rest of it. I didn't finish watching the Oscars, like I said. But I really did enjoy seeing all of those moments. Those are kind of my overall thoughts. Another thing I really wanted to talk about really quickly is code switching. I was talking to someone recently today about English and learning English and pronouncing English. And they were trying to say, like, they're an English teacher. They teach English to kids, and they were talking about their struggles with younger kids with which English is not their first language or who have a heavy accent. And they were talking about the struggle they're having with knowing the extent to correct people who are learning English with the background of like not having English as their first language or having an accent, because they find that they pronounce things a certain way and they're speaking English with their accent, but it's impeding their people's ability to understand them. But they don't also want to be dismissive of their culture, and they don't know how to like connect with them. And they were asking me, they're like, oh, you're Nigerian, you were born in Nigeria, how do you not have an accent? How do you not, like, you sound so American and you sound so, I forget the word, but it was just like, oh, I can understand you perfectly. That conversation was a little, I don't know. I felt a lot of ways about it, because on one hand, I was a little like taken aback. Like, what do you mean you understand me? Like, it's English. Of course you understand me. And I know how to speak English. English is my first language, actually. But I also found, like, I also understood the fact that, like, I have been code switching for the longest, especially after I moved from home and started school in the US. It just happened. I remember at some point I saw like a video or an interview with Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and she mentioned that she has made it a conscious effort to not lose her accent. And I think she actually mentions it in Americana, like the main character in Americana is someone who clings to her Nigerianness, and that also like lends itself to the extent of like the way she speaks. I'm somebody who's very proud of my culture. I feel like if you know me, you're gonna know I'm Nigerian. I'm gonna talk about it. I speak Yoruba, not trying to take away that part of myself, but in the spirit of trying to be adaptable and malleable and trying to fit in and trying to be able to be understood, I often found myself code switching, and I've been doing that for a very long time. Even before I left for college, back home, I remember people would tell me, "Oh, you're speaking Fune. You sound like what accent you're forming." I remember people say, "You're forming your accent. You're forming your accent." And I was like, "Oh, I'm not forming my accent. Like, this is just the way I talk." I used to watch a lot of American TV and just be exposed to a lot of Western stuff, and I would mimic them. And then when I moved, I was really immersed in this space where everyone sounded a certain way, and I found myself mimicking their way of speaking because I just wanted to be understood, and I didn't want to give anyone a reason to doubt me. Now, there are a lot of reasons that people code switch, especially people of color. It's a thing where you just don't want to be discarded, and you want to be understood, and you want to be listened to, and you want to be heard. I just think that's very interesting. And I wonder if a lot of us know that we're doing it, like we're code switching. There's a lot of different ways that you can code switch. And I was thinking about what does that mean, and what is that doing to me on a psychological level, and how I present myself. And at the end of the day, I'm just evolving, and I'm just being adaptable. I feel like I said, it was really just to avoid discrimination and to make sure that I was being able to communicate, and I wasn't being targeted because of something that I feel like. It's not like I'm incapable of speaking English. It's not like I'm incapable of understanding other people. It's not like I'm incapable of expressing myself properly. So I don't want to give anyone a reason to. And sometimes that can be very beneficial. As someone who has been in spaces where you have to know how to be articulate, you have to know how to speak properly. There's no really room, because those people are closed-minded, quite frankly, to be like the outlier, the person that isn't understood. Because you're not necessarily in a position of power, you get overlooked and you might get discriminated against. So technically, code switching, and I think that's really been the crux of it for the longest times, like why people code switch is really to protect themselves. But it's really, really sad. Now, Toby Ojora she's a content creator on across social platforms, and she has this really articulate, very succinct think piece on this topic on her TikTok. I highly recommend you search it up and go listen to it. I think she explains it perfectly, way better than I am doing right now, quite honestly. But what really stood out to me is that she really touched on like, what is the cost of code switching? Like, it's a really, when you think about it, it's quite sad, because you have to kind of modulate your communication style and adjust and tweak and tinge, because you're trying to immerse yourself in wherever you are and make sure that you're able to assimilate. But that's kind of sad, because it also implies that who you are at its core, who you came in being, is not acceptable or is not understood. And so you have to change, you have to make adjustments. Now, like I said, it's good because it protects you, it does all these things, but it's also kind of sad, and psychologically it's very jarring. And it also makes you seem fake. Like, I feel like some people think I'm fake because they hear me speak one way to someone, but when I'm talking to my mom in Yoruba, or when I'm like just gabbing with her over something that is so Nigerian that the Nigerian in me just has to come out, and I'm using all these slang and I'm talking a certain way, and you can just tell that I am Nigerian because the mannerisms just come out. They're looking at me like, oh, she's a completely different person. Like, has she been pretending? It's not like I'm pretending, but you're seeing different facets of me. You're seeing different like sides to me, and that does come at like a little bit of an emotional cost, and it's also really, really hard to break, because you get to a point where you don't even remember what you sounded like before you started code switching. Like, right now, this is just the way I talk. I seamlessly kind of move between accents. I move between different ways of saying things, or different mannerisms when I'm trying to articulate something. When I'm joking around, I'm a little bit more like laid back. I use a lot of slang. Like, I sound completely different to when I'm like doing something like this, where I'm having a podcast and I'm trying to have like a more intellectually stimulating conversation. I sound so different. The words I choose are so different versus when I'm speaking Yoruba, because I have that accent and I'm really trying to pay homage to the culture by speaking it right and not bastardizing it with Western details. So it's a really interesting thing to navigate, because I'm someone who is constantly asking herself, are you being your most authentic self? Are you showing up in the world as you, not trying to fake it, not trying to mold yourself to fit anyone's frame? And I think a lot of people in the diaspora can relate to this, or if you're someone who works somewhere where there aren't a lot of people who are like you or have the same background as you, and you've had to code switch. Code switching is not just language. Code switching can come in the form of dressing, it can come in the forms of mannerisms, it can come in like you can code switch in a number of ways. And if you're anyone who's had to code switch, I think you would understand that it's not necessarily like you're not being your authentic self, but it's the fact that you have to show you feel like you have to show one side of yourself in a certain capacity. You can't really bring your full self. And I know a lot of people talk about, you should be able to bring your full self to work. And I would argue that, or your full self wherever you go. And I would argue that maybe that's not always the case. Sometimes we're layered, we're multifaceted, and you lean on different parts of yourself and you pick from different parts of your self to serve different purposes. And so when I find myself quote unquote code switching, or just like tapping into a different reserve in my brain in order to achieve something, I don't think of it as me not authentically being myself. I just think of it as me tapping into a certain area of myself for me to get something done, or for me to move forward in a certain situation. However, I think what I'm really trying to caution within myself is, don't always feel like you cannot like draw on multiple facets, or that you have to make yourself digestible to people when it's not necessary. Because there are some times where you're just like, you're having a very casual conversation and all of a sudden you don't want to say a word because you're gonna be looked at as like uncultured. They just don't get it. If it's appropriate in that setting, and if you feel like, okay, the person will eventually, like, they will be able to get what I mean, it's just not what they would say, then just say it. Like, literally just be yourself still. Don't feel like you have to, and I'm talking to myself when I say this, it's like, I really don't think we should feel compelled to adjust when not needed, or adjust just to please others. It's really, at the end of the day, it's about protecting yourself. But yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about this past week and this past few days. And the last thing I wanted to touch on today, because I've been thinking about it a little bit, is the idea of right person, wrong timing, or right thing, wrong timing, right situation, wrong timing. I used to think that was a thing. I'm not going to lie. And honestly, I just want to put this out there as a disclaimer. This is a medium for me to process my thoughts in this moment in time. A lot of things can change. I think the only thing that's not going to change by His grace is my belief in God and the fact that He's ultimate. But a lot of my opinions about life and at where I am in my life and my personality, like, we're all growing, we're all evolving. So just keep that in mind when you listen to me talk and give opinions on certain things, because I'm allowed to change my mind. You're allowed to change your mind. But I think it's just like, these types of things are just interesting for me to think about and talk about. So that's why I'm bringing it to your attention. And that leads me to my point about this concept of right person, wrong timing. I used to think that was true. I don't think that's true anymore. Why would you say that? I'm thinking about this concept in the context of relationships, platonic or romantic. I think that if you meet someone that you align with so strongly, but you're not able to sustain a relationship with them, whether, again, like, it's platonic or romantic, because you think it's wrong timing, then that person was just probably not supposed to be in your life. That person was actually wrong for you. Or that person was only meant to be in your life for a certain moment in time. And after that, you were not meant to be together. Because I just think that if I meet somebody that I think is perfect, oh, this person is my bestie, or this person is my partner and I want to be with them forever, it's not going to be a wrong timing. I'm just going to figure out how to move forward with them. And I'm not going to let anything really get in the way of that. So in the situation where it's kind of like right person, wrong timing, I've come to believe now that that person may not just have been the person for me. This person, we were probably supposed to be in each other's lives for this amount of time or in this capacity. But if it's not working in a certain moment, it just means that like at that moment in time, it's wrong. And you might ask, oh, what about people that maybe you're trying to have a relationship with them and it doesn't happen. And then later down the line, it works out. It still doesn't mean that they were the right person that first time around. It just means that, okay, in this moment in time, when you've reconciled, they're the right person for you then. It doesn't mean that they were the right person for you before. That version of themselves was not the right person for you in that moment. That version of you weren't the right person for them either. So right now, I think if I were to rephrase it, I would just say like everything happens in the time that it's supposed to happen. But it's not a matter of, oh, this was the right person, that the timing just sucked, the universe just didn't want it to happen. No. Now honestly believe that if you're not with someone or you're not able to carry on a relationship with someone, it's probably because you weren't meant to be with them at that time. They were just wrong for you. Because if they were, like, just me thinking about it logically, if someone was really right for me and I felt it in my bones, like, oh, me and this person are locked in for real, nothing would necessarily get in the way of that. Like, we would be able to work through whatever is so wrong about the timing, or at least have patience to go the distance. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's just my 2 piece right now. And now that I'm getting into my early 20s, where I think things start to get a little bit more real, I'm going to start to even experience more things that I want to like grapple with and make sense of and break down. And so I encourage you guys to, share your thoughts on all of these topics, and kind of weigh in on where do you stand, or are there any specific kind of concepts in which you've kind of changed your mind in the way you think about it or that you approach it? Because I'm really curious to know. So thank you all for listening. As a reminder, you can find me on Instagram at I am Tony Iman. That's kind of where I promote the podcast, put out any PSAs, all that. But if you're listening on Spotify, you can also leave a comment or a review on Apple Podcasts, if that's where you're listening, or anywhere else you're listening to podcasts. This is also your reminder to leave a review. 5 stars, 4 stars is acceptable, only because I realize that I am not perfect and this podcast is not perfect. But I really do think that we're all kind of like hanging out here, we're chilling. I think we're having a good time. If you made it to this far of the episode, you might as well just leave a rating and make it a good one, because you obviously enjoyed this. So thank you so much again for letting me into your ears today. I hope to talk to you again next week. Have an amazing, amazing time. God bless you all. Bye.